Hi everyone, welcome to The Explorer.
Introduction to Muet Speaking 800/2. The main aim of Muet Paper 2 is to test the communication skills of students. Test takers are assessed on their ability to give an oral presentation of ideas individually, as well as to interact in small groups in both more formal and less formal academic contexts. Topics for the discussion may include people and culture, health and environment, science and technology. It will also include issues relating to education, consumerism, and also financial awareness. For your information, students are tested in groups of 4. These 4 students will go into the examination room together. The time allocated for Muet 800/2 speaking is 30 minutes in total for both Part 1 and Part 2. In Part 1, all the 4 candidates in the group are given the same situation, but each candidate will receive a different suggestion, opinion, view, solution to the situation. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to prepare their responses and 2 minutes to present. Part 2 is a group discussion. Candidates will remain in the same group, and in Part 2, a different question is given. Candidates are to discuss the question using the 5 prompts in the form of a mind map. Candidates will have to refer to the given situation and the visual or the stimulus in the form of a mind map. Preparation time for group discussion is 3 minutes, and the actual discussion time is between 8 to 12 minutes per group. The sitting arrangement for the speaking component is as follows. There will be 2 examiners who will be assessing the candidates. The 4 candidates will be seated in a group. The candidates will be addressed as candidate A, B, C, and D throughout the session. Now let's look at the skills tested in the speaking component. For this component, you will be tested on the following aspects: accuracy, fluency, appropriacy, coherence and cohesion, use of language functions, managing a discussion, and last but not least, fulfillment of tasks.
This is a sample of the Muet speaking paper.
For you to be able to understand this component better, let us take a look at the sample question for Part 1. As I've told you earlier, each group consists of 4 candidates and they will all be talking about the same situation. The situation in this sample is, it is important to be healthy. Suggest some ways to keep healthy.
These are the papers for Part 1 individual presentation. Candidate A, Candidate B, Candidate C, and Candidate D.
However, each candidate is asked to speak on a certain aspect of the given situation. As you can see here, Candidate A will have to talk about the importance of what and when people eat. Candidate B will talk about the importance of getting enough rest. Candidate C will talk about the importance of exercise. And Candidate B will have to talk about the importance of seeing the doctor regularly. In Part 2, you will be given a different situation, but the theme remains the same, which is health. This time, you will have to discuss the question using 5 prompts given in the form of a mind map. The sample situation is, there is an increasing concern about the quality of healthcare in Malaysia. In your group, discuss how healthcare can be improved. The group members may use the ideas given in the mind map or use their own ideas during the discussion. During the discussion, each member may agree or disagree with the views and opinions of the other group members. Each member should be able to provide examples, explanation, and details in order to persuade the other group members to agree with his or her ideas. The group should be able to come to a conclusion at the end of the discussion. As I told you earlier, the maximum time given for the group discussion is 12 minutes. So at the end of the 12 minutes, you should come to a consensus as to which of the ideas given is the best to resolve the situation.
Papers for Part 2, Group Discussion. Candidate A, Candidate B, Candidate C, and Candidate D.
To make you understand the whole procedure of the speaking component, please watch the video given later. For your information, if you wish to print out the question paper, you can do so by using the link in the YouTube description.
This is a recording of Muet, Malaysian University English Test, Paper 2, Speaking. For Part 1, each candidate is given a task sheet. Then they each have 2 minutes to prepare their responses, after which they would be given 2 minutes to present. For Part 2, candidates would turn to the next page of the task sheet. They would be given 3 minutes to prepare and 8 to 12 minutes to discuss the topic. In the discussion, they may support or oppose the other candidates' views. At the end of the discussion, candidates try to come to a decision on which of the suggestions is the best. This is the seating arrangement. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's Muet test. There are 2 parts to this test. We'll start with part 1 first. So in this part of the test, I'm going to give each of you a question. I'd like you to talk about your question on your own for about 2 minutes. So here are your questions. Candidate A, Candidate B, Candidate C, and Candidate D. All right. Your questions are all about ways to keep healthy. You now have 2 minutes to prepare your presentation, right? Okay, Candidate A, it's your turn first. Talk about the importance of what and when people eat. You may begin.
Good morning, examiners and friends. So, it is important to be healthy. What are the ways to keep healthy? So, in my opinion, it is very important to know what and when people eat. For example, as we all know, the saying goes, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. We need to know what are the type of food that we need to eat which will keep us healthy. And it is important because we need to have because it makes us strong and a balanced diet. For example, consume more fruits and vegetables. When we consume more fruits and vegetables, it has a lot of minerals and vitamins which will prevent a lot of diseases such as obesity, which is a common problem in Malaysia. Besides that, we need to consume less fried food or junk foods, especially among the children. Children love junk food, and we need to address to them that this food is bad. They need to eat more vegetables. And other than that, it is also important that they know when is the right time to eat. A lot of people, especially Malaysians, we love supper, and supper is actually unhealthy because after we eat the food, we have no time to actually use this energy, because after that we just go for a long rest and ready for the next day. And this will cause all this food to be converted into fats and lead to obesity. Hence, we need to ensure that we eat 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because these are the right time where, especially breakfast, when we eat breakfast, then we go to school or we go to work, which is where you actually use up the calories. And it's also important to note that we need to eat more carbohydrates, especially for the teenagers, the younger generations. They need all these energies to carry out their daily activities. And of course, they need to eat in sufficient amount. And that's why I believe that it is important to know what and when people eat.
Right, thank you, Candidate A. Candidate B, talk about the importance of exercise. Right.
A very good morning to examiners and my fellow candidates. Today I'll be talking about the importance of exercise that will able to keep us healthy in daily life. First and foremost, I feel like while you're exercising, you're able to stay away from sicknesses and diseases. When you exercise, your excretory system goes to work, and your sweat, which will excrete out from your sweat glands, consists of mineral salts and urine. All these toxic substances, while you excrete out, it's able to eliminate and able to help your body to function normally. And when you eliminate all this toxic, you're able to keep yourself healthy by eliminating all the possibility of getting diseases such as obesity that will lead to diabetes, heart attack, and blood pressure. For example, obesity, if you do not exercise and you eat, your fat will accumulate and somehow it will clog your blood vessels, and this will lead the bloods to not be transported to your parts of your body, and this will actually lead to heart attack and may result in death, and this is not a healthy lifestyle. My second point will be it helps with mental health. Normally, when you exercise, you're able to release a hormone called dopamine, and this will actually help you to become happier. It's a happy hormone, and when you have dopamine, you're able to reduce the chances of getting depressed. And while you exercise, also you are able to release stress. And my last point will be, instead of talking about physically and mentally, we could also talk about exercising. You are able to develop a healthy relationship among one another. That's also a healthy lifestyle. When you're exercising, you're able to interact with one another, you're able to talk with one another, discuss and have fun, and this will actually help you to also release stress and also have a healthy relationship with one another. In conclusion, I believe that exercising could actually keep you healthy.
All right, thank you, Candidate B. Candidate C, talk about the importance of seeing the doctor regularly. You may begin.
A very good morning to the examiners and my fellow candidates. Why do I feel like seeing the doctor is very important in order for us to be healthy? One reason is that when we are able to see a doctor regularly, we are able to go for checkups often. That's one of the reasons why we go see the doctor. So when we get checkups often, we know if our body is in a healthy condition or not. We are able to detect like an early detection of any kind of diseases like cancer, diabetes, or probably if you are prone to heart attacks. Also, when we go for checkups often, we know how to improve our health. If we are having, let's say, if we were to have early stages of diabetes, we know how to improve ourselves. Probably the doctor will give us medication, or he will tell us what kind of foods for us to eat, so in order for us to be healthy. Also, when we are able to go for when we see the doctor regularly, early detection of diseases can be prevented from spreading. We can know how to make ourselves better. Also, when we see a doctor regularly, we are able to keep ourselves healthy because in conclusion, I believe that it's important to see the doctor regularly in order for us to be healthy.
All right, thank you, Candidate C. Candidate D, talk about the importance of getting enough rest.
Now, when we talk about rest, I believe that there are two parts to this. Rest involves both sleep and relaxation as well. So, through rest, the first thing is that you get to reduce your stress. Now, one of the few famous, well-known people, such as Steve Jobs, he would spend at least around 10 to 20 minutes a day in his office just to meditate, to relax and rest. Whereas Elon Musk, who always spend his Sundays, his full Sundays, just to relax and spend time with his family. So this is ways that people, they schedule time to really just rest and relax because they understand the importance of rest, that it helps reduce the stress from the workload that they have. Next, following that is that rest will help control your alertness and your mood. Now, when you lack rest, your alertness towards your surroundings drop. This could pose a health risk, whereas when you are walking, you are unable to walk properly and you do not notice certain things such as sharp edges of the table, or when you're going down a staircase and you may trip and fall. So that's a risk for your health and your mood as well, because if you do not have the right mood, you get angry, you get stressed out easily, and this affects your mental health. Lack of sleep could also even lead to hallucination, which is dangerous, where you start seeing things where you're not supposed to. Next thing about rest could also relate to your growth. So there's a proven relationship between enough sleep and your growth. If you lack sleep, you are unable to develop in your growth properly. This is why parents, teachers, and everyone else always encourage kids to sleep early and get at least about 8 hours of sleep a day, especially if you are a child who is still growing up. Last but not least, rest does support your immune system as well. There was this man who couldn't sleep, who developed a disease where he couldn't sleep. So as he went on and couldn't sleep, he ended up dying because his immune system just couldn't continue supporting him anymore. In conclusion, I believe that having enough rest is very important for your health.
All right, thank you, Candidate D. So that's the end of part 1. Now we'll move on to part 2. Turn to the other side of your paper. Now in this part of the test, you're going to discuss for about 8 to 12 minutes about how healthcare can best be improved. On this page, there are some ideas to help you. In your discussion, you may support or oppose the other candidate's views. And at the end of the discussion, try to decide on the best suggestion. You now have 3 minutes to prepare. All right, so let's start with our discussion. So discuss how healthcare can best be improved. You may begin.
A very good morning to examiners and my fellow candidates. I believe that two of the best way to improve healthcare will be having more doctors, because the wait time for general hospital is too long. For example, general hospital in university, we have to take turns, and when you like to do an operation, you need to wait for your call, which acclimate to days and weeks and months. And this will actually affect people to go to private university. But normally people who go to general hospital are people who don't have sufficient money to go to the private. So if they are forced and they have to wait to go to the general hospital, they are forced to go to the private, but do not have enough money to go for treatment. And this will actually result in healthcare in Malaysia to drop, because they are not able to treat their sicknesses. And looking at the education, if we're able to educate the people of Malaysia, for example, taking care of our own hygiene, we are able to clean, we have to educate the Malaysians to wash our hands before and after taking food, and this will actually reduce the possibility of getting sicknesses. What do you guys think?
I partially agree with you, candidate B. I disagree with the part that you say that we will need more doctors to improve the quality of healthcare in Malaysia, because I believe the number of doctors in Malaysia, there's quite a lot that is pursuing the doctor field. But I think what's more important is to train the nurses better, because most of them, that from what we know, is that they need to be trained to be more sharp and more alert to assist the doctors. And some nurses, because they are not the doctor, they are not the one that is mainly in charge of the patients, they might lose the sense of responsibility to make sure that the patient is treated properly. And that's why, and some also don't take their jobs seriously, like they are playing their phones during when they are working. And we need to train all these nurses to be better. But I agree with you that education is very important. As we all know, in the past, that there is the cholera disease, this pandemic disease, right? And or more recently, the Ebola virus. All these things happen because there is not enough education to educate the public. And it can be done in several ways. For example, we can use through social media or news. It will educate the public that this virus will cause very serious problems. What do you all think?
I agree with candidate A and B that education and more doctors do help. But I think one point that we could actually look at is cleanliness quality of the country. Now, see, looking at the cleanliness quality, thinking about how diseases come about in the first place is because of filth, because of bacteria, because of viruses. So if the cleanliness quality of the country is well maintained, this will reduce the risk of having and developing diseases in the first place. For example, H1N1, which was a disease beginning from a pig, was it, if I'm not mistaken, correct? So if the health quality of our country was maintained in the first place, that virus would not have developed and would not have spread throughout, and hence our quality of health would have been maintained. What do you guys think?
I agree with what you've said, all of you. But also, I have to say, one way that we can improve healthcare in Malaysia is by improving our hospital buildings. You see, right now most of the hospitals that we have here, especially the general hospitals, they're all run down, they're old, they don't have many facilities that are able to hold many people, since we do have a large number of people in Malaysia who do require healthcare, especially in general hospitals. So it's very important that we do fix up these places, we do add more wards, we do add bigger waiting areas, and also so that we're able to handle many people, so that we're able to look at many people who are waiting to receive medical attention. Also, I feel that we should also improve and have more doctors, but not only to have more doctors, but also to have more qualified doctors who are able to give their time and effort into helping people and not just doing it for the money. And we should also get professional doctors who don't just do 6:30 work when they're treating a patient, because every patient requires important attention by a professionally trained doctor. What do you guys think?
So I think there's a strong link between more doctors, more hospital buildings, and well-trained nurses as well, because even though you have more doctors, you require more hospital buildings to have to place them in the first place. And a doctor will not work well without having a proper assistance, which is well-trained nurses that can take care of the patients.
I agree with you. I agree with you, candidate D, that it has a strong link, but if we want to look at the best way to improve healthcare, I will still stand on the point that education is important. As what you have mentioned earlier, that cleanliness and all is still very important to be maintained, but how would it be maintained? You need to have people who are educated, that they know that cleanliness, if the place is not well maintained, that all these diseases, viruses would actually start spreading. And like what candidate B mentioned earlier about washing hands and all this. So it all stems from education. I believe education is the grassroots that of the way that can actually improve healthcare.
I agree with candidate and candidate C about the point with saying more doctors and also education. But looking at more doctors, if you have more doctors and if you have more doctors, you need more hospital buildings, because as what candidate has said, that there are a lot of doctors, and so in order to actually accommodate all these doctors, we need more hospital buildings. And instead of making more hospitals in the cities, why not we do it in the rural areas where people who are unable to reach out to all these general hospitals, they're able to travel to the hospital nearby and get their treatment. And this is actually related back to the cost of looking at the point of cost of medicine, because rural areas people, they don't have much money to actually get a medicine, which the price of the medicine are quite not that cheap. So when we lower down the cost of medicine, we're able to let more people increase the chance of people who are unable to purchase these medicines to able to purchase the medicines. And looking at education, I agree with candidate's point, saying that education are also one of the best way to improve healthcare. If we are able to educate people, for example, dengue is quite a serious case in Selangor, which is the highest cases in Selangor. If we're able to educate the people in Selangor or in Malaysia about how to prevent dengue, and this will actually help a lot and improve our healthcare in Malaysia. What do you guys think?
I agree with you, candidate B, when you were talking about the cost of medicine. I do agree that cost of medicine should be taken a look at in Malaysia, especially the medicine nowadays is very expensive. Not many people can afford it, and they don't have time to wait in a hospital to get their turn in order for them to get good proper medicine. So most people usually revert back to generic medicine, which may cause a lot of side effects which will add more to whatever sickness that they're having now. So when we are able to improve the cost of medicine, reducing it, many people will finally be able to get good proper medicine in order to treat themselves, which is also very, very important. Also, candidate B, when you're talking about education, yes, it is very, very important. Not many people know nowadays what the difference between generic medicine, good medicine, what kind of diseases they are having. So we should be educated in order to improve healthcare.
I agree as well with candidate B and candidate C that actually the cost of medicine plays an important factor. Even though we may have more doctors, well-trained nurses, and many hospital buildings, if you have access to those but you are unable to afford the medicine, it is basically pointless to have a checkup with the doctor. And I agree as well that education is, like what candidate A said, the very roots to developing a good healthcare in the country. Because with education, everyone is aware and exposed to how they may protect their own health, how they can have a balanced diet in the first place to keep themselves well, how they are educated to keep their houses clean and wash their hands before they just begin eating. Some simple little things that can lead to a better health.
I agree that cost of medicine is one of important way to improve healthcare, but in another point of view, right, cost of medicine would be a problem if it's a private hospital, because usually when you talk about private hospitals is where the medical bills and everything is really, really high. But in like government hospitals, there's the problem is lesser. The problem is more on from what candidate C said, that they have to wait for a very long line. So it feels like there are several problems that require different ways to approach.
Correct, but I think we can agree that education would lead to all these solutions. For example, through education, with a better education, you get to encourage more doctors to be passionate about their job, and you get to train nurses to be better and take more responsibility over the patients as well. With education, you also understand what type of medicines you need to consume, and the proper prices for it, so you do not get conned by perhaps pharmacies that are not properly regulated. Education may also teach you as well as to how to take care of yourself, because not every disease will require a medical checkup. But if you don't know, then you often have to go for medical checkups, which will just cost you too much.
I agree with candidate A and candidate D about the points of education is very important. For example, if there's no education, vaccination, the vaccination case which happened in the United States may happen in Malaysia if education is not spread widely about the vaccination. People are believing the false rumors about vaccination, that it causes autism and so on. So if there's no education, parents, people who believe the false rumor will actually not vaccinate their child, and this will actually affect and would actually make maybe a virus outbreak again. For example, measles that has been tamed after a few years. If they do not have vaccinated their children, this disease may come back again. Looking at another point, more doctors. I agree with candidate C about having more passionate and responsible doctors. There's a good example in Kuala Lumpur. There is a doctor called Teddy Doctor who actually Teddy Bear Doctor, who provide free services to homeless people, and this is the doctor we need in Malaysia to improve our healthcare.
I think we're looking a lot at physical health as well, but we're missing one important factor of mental health as well. By having doctors, hospitals, well-trained nurses, or even course of medicine will not help your mental health. But what will help is good education, where we are taught to be aware of mental health, when to get help, and how to handle mental health as well.
I agree with candidate D on the education on mental health. We nowadays, we don't really see mental health. It's what we feel on the inside, and it's very, very important that we know what we are going through, and being educated by this, it's one way that we can improve healthcare.
In conclusion, I think we can all agree that education is the most important factor of improving our healthcare in the country.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. So can I have back your task sheets, please? Thank you. Thank you. So that's the end of our exam for today. Thank you very much.
That's all for today's lesson. Thank you. Subscribe to the Explorer for more lessons.